Well, hello and welcome to Matters of the Heart. I am Gabriel Gonsalves, an international coach, teacher, and trainer specialized in the field of heart intelligence. I help people create relationships, lifestyles, and careers that they absolutely love. And I do this by showing you how to access your inner resources of love, joy, wisdom, and power that become available to you when you start connecting with your emotional, intuitive, energetic, and spiritual heart. Through individual and group coaching programs, online courses, and live seminars, I teach a wholehearted approach to personal and spiritual development, emotional mastery, and conscious relationship building. Basically, I'm here to help you give birth to the most loving, amazing, joyful, wise, and powerful version of you. Think of this as the 2.0 version of yourself. You can find out more about me and the work that I've been called to do in this world by visiting my website, heartintelligencecoach.com, where you'll be able to book a session with me or find out more about my upcoming seminars around the world. Today in Matters of the Heart, we are going to be talking about my recent pilgrimage to the Camino de Santiago, actually to Santiago de Compostela. The whole pilgrimage is called El Camino de Santiago. And my intention is to share with you some of the insights and some of the epiphanies that I had while walking this Camino, and then also answer any questions that you may have. So if you're joining us live and you want to ask any questions, you can do that at any time by typing in your question in the Q&A session available at the bottom of your Zoom screen. All right. Before we get started, as we normally do, let's take a few moments to anchor ourselves into our hearts. And the way I'm going to ask you to do this today is by not only placing a hand over the middle of your chest, but also imagining as you're listening to my words that there is a pink light surrounding your heart. So think of the color pink. And then imagine that right there in the middle of your chest, there is a circle of pink light as you begin to now breathe in and out of the heart. With every breath, you begin to expand that circle, amplify it. Knowing that with every breath, you're summoning the creative forces of the universe, the magnetic forces of the universe that are amplifying your capacity to connect and attune to the infinite love of the Creator, of the heart of God, of the central sun. Activating within you the vibrational frequency of unconditional love. The perfect love of the Father and Mother God that transmutes all fear. As you breathe in and out of your heart, let us just know for ourselves and for each other that we live in an unconditionally loving universe. That this love requires you to do nothing, for it is inherent, it's what you're made out of. And that you can just simply feel the supporting love around you. Think of it as the air around you. If you think of yourself as a person who's sitting this moment on a chair, or if you're laying down in bed, or driving your car, if you are, just think of yourself as you're being supported right now by the seat, or something that is holding you, even the ground. And that is a part that you can see, that you can actually feel. But then there's an aspect of you that you cannot see. So think of it as the air around you. You're being held and supported right now, not just by that chair you're sitting on or that floor you're standing on, but you're also being held and supported by the space, the air around you. So think of this loving intelligence as both. It shows up as a roof over your head, your right livelihood, friends and people who love you, who support you, who understand you, with whom you feel deeply connected to. But then also as an unseen force that right here and right now, by means of your heart, you get to connect with and appreciate all around you. Now imagine that this pink light from your heart now is expanding and it's becoming even a larger bubble around you, so that you are now enveloped in a pink sphere of light. And then continue to breathe in and out of this heart, expanding this sphere. Setting the intention that over the next hour, to become open and available to new insights that will support you along your own path, whatever you may be. Knowing that regardless of where you may be along your own journey, there are no mistakes that have taken place. There are no mistakes that are taking place. That you are right here, right now, exactly where you need to be. That right here, right now, you have summoned all the lessons, all the people around you. And that where you are is exactly where the lessons, where your growing edge is happening. Think of it as the bottom of the ocean. There's this new crust that's being created. So right here, right now, through by means of your heart connection, there is a new version of yourself being birthed. A version that is wiser, more loving, more powerful. As we now set the intention to activate this threefold flame within our own heart, the three qualities of God, of love, wisdom, and power. Breathing the love in, breathing the wisdom in, breathing the power in, and claiming and affirming for ourselves that we live, move, and have our beings in this loving, wise intelligence that is all powerful. Connecting and aligning to the heart of God directly right now without the need of any other person. We can do that right here, right now, by the power of our intention. Becoming available to that which is already there, has always been, and will always be. Giving thanks for this connection, and giving thanks for the opportunity to connect to our hearts, to expand this energy field around us, and to become open and available to new insights, new ideas that will support us along our own individual journeys. For this, I am infinitely grateful and thankful, and I let it be. And so it is. And it is so. Amen. Amen. Ashe. All right, so here I am, and I'm feeling very excited to be back to these very special space. I've actually missed connecting with you and having the opportunity to share some weekly insights over the past few weeks. In case you may not be aware of, I took a break from doing this podcast because I decided to travel to Europe, where I'm not only facilitating some trainings and some seminars in heart intelligence, but where I felt called to walk the Camino de Santiago, a pilgrimage that for several centuries, people from all walks of life have been doing to the city of Santiago de Compostela in Galicia, where the remains, the relics of the remains of the Apostle Santiago, St. James, rest. It's a pilgrimage that for many centuries, people from Portugal, Spanish people from France, people from all over the world really have undertaken in many different ways with the intention of purifying their bodies, their hearts, their minds, their souls, and emerge reborn, renewed, restored. And the funny thing about this Camino for me is that since I first heard about it, I'd say probably about 7 years ago, I set the intention every year, and I told myself, I'm walking the Camino this year. I'm walking the Camino this year. And for one or other reason, it just would not happen. Sometimes was because I had the time, but then I didn't have the money. Sometimes I had the money, but I didn't have the time. Sometimes I had the money and the time, but then something came up at the very last moment that kept me from going. But it seems like this year, everything came together. Everything came together in a magical way that it's almost like it all happened on its own. And it happened in a very magical way. And it also coincided with a particular time in my life where I really feel a period of my life is coming to an end. I've been living in South Africa for the past 11 years now, where I have been developing all this work around heart intelligence, working with small group of people and clients. And I really feel that period has now come to an end. It's come, it's come full circle. And my heart, when it speaks to me, has been asking me to travel the world and to find a new home from where I can then expand this teaching and scale it up so it can reach more and more people. It's one of the reasons why I decided to start these series of podcasts a couple of months ago. And it's actually very exciting to be in the city of Madeira, which is where I am today, after having walked the Camino and then spending 10 beautiful days in France. To be able to do that, I mean, for me, it's mind-boggling that I can actually carry my microphone, my backpack, my computer, my laptop, 3 shirts, a pair of jeans, 3 pairs of underwear, a jacket, and then sail out to walk in the world and still be able to broadcast a show like this. I think it's just fascinating, the times in which we're living. And not only that, but I also get to share some of what I'm learning along my own path, hoping that it will support you also along yours. So one of the things I discovered on this pilgrimage is that the majority of the people that I talked to along the path, when I asked them what was the reason why they were walking the path, the commonality, the common answer was always because a period of my life has just come to an end and I'm seeking some guidance and direction. Most people along the Camino are going through some kind of a transition in their lives. I met a wonderful man my very first night who just recently lost his wife, his partner of 30 years. And it happened a week after he retired. And with tears in his eyes, he was telling me, I just don't know who I am anymore. So I decided to walk the Camino, which is something I always wanted to do, to ask God to show me the next steps along my journey. And the truth is that is also why I walk the Camino in so many ways. As this period of my life is coming to an end, my time in South Africa coming to an end, my heart has been asking me to expand its wings. If you've ever think of that beautiful Sufi depiction of the heart that has wings, that's pretty much where my heart is right now. Just feeling a deep desire to feel free and to travel the world and to share my message with more and more people. And so I walked the Camino with pretty much 2 intentions. One, to let go of an old aspect of myself, to let go of a lot of things that I've been carrying with me for a very long time. A lot of responsibilities that I had taken on for other people that were not really mine. A lot of guilt and shame accumulated from experiences early in my childhood. It seems like the Camino provides you with an opportunity to really release and let go of all these things. There's something really magical about beginning a journey where first you're stripped down to the bare essentials. As I said, you just travel with a backpack, a very comfortable pair of shoes, and then you begin your journey without really knowing where you're going to be sleeping that night, where you're going to be staying, what are you going to be eating. So if you're one of those people who wants to plan or likes to plan, or you want to control everything in your life, the Camino, it's a wonderful way to surrender that need to control. And so when you're stripped down to the bare essentials, and then you begin your walk, and you're walking approximately 25 to 30 kilometers per day. So we're talking about 10 to 12 miles a day. And when you do that through hills and open countries, going through cities, going through towns, going through sometimes plains where you don't really see a soul for quite a few hours, And you're doing this carrying this extra weight. I had in my backpack approximately, I think, about 8 kilograms of stuff that I was carrying, including my camera, of course. What begins to happen is you begin to get a sense of the emotional, mental weight that you're also carrying with you. As above, so below. And so the burden of climbing up a very steep hill, carrying this weight, also forces you to think about all the other weight that you've been carrying with you. People in your life that you have not forgiven. All grudges and resentments that you might be holding against other people. So as I began my walk, and by the way, I did not walk the full Camino. I did this San Jean. There are different Caminos. There's a Primitivo, there's a French way, there's a Portuguese way. They all pretty much lead to the same place, which is obviously the city of Santiago de Compostela. As I walked it, I lost the train of thought that I had. So I did not walk the full Camino. So what I did was I decided to walk a shorter version of it, which is 272 kilometers from the city of Astorga, which is just in the municipality of León in Spain. So I began it in Spain. The minimum Camino most people can do in order to receive the credentials or the certificate that you completed the Camino is 100 kilometers. So a lot of people begin it in Sarria, which is much closer. It's quite busy, obviously, because a lot of people are walking it from there. But I walked it, you would say, probably about halfway. I did half of the French way, if you may. And as I was just saying, you walk approximately 25, 30 kilometers per day, or depending on your pace, you might walk a lot less. And along the path, one of the things that begins to happen is you first become confronted, or I began to speak about myself. I became first very confronted with what it means like to be in the body. So the very first experience that most people have in the Camino is the soreness of the body, the pressure, obviously, as I was saying, of the backpack and the extra weight. You get blisters. I did not meet anyone who did not have blisters. Even people who were walking the Camino for the third or the fourth time in their lives, they had blisters. And my goodness, I developed some major blisters around my feet as well. I never seen blisters that big my whole life. And so you become increasingly aware of the body, the burden on the body that is not fit, that is not used to walking that long. And the pain and the aches of what it feels like to breathe in your body. And, interesting, in my seminars, one of the things I teach is that the way into the heart is through the body, right? As long as I'm in the linearity of my mind, thinking about the future, thinking about the past, or just in the world of rationality and ideas, the tendency is not to really be in the body. So to be able to move into your body and to move into your heart requires that you first bring the awareness into the body, because through the body we access the physical sensations that ultimately allow us to feel our emotions, because our emotions are ultimately experienced as physical sensation, right? When you feel fear, you feel the pulsating heartbeat, and you feel a sense of tightness around the stomach. We experience it as a sensation. So if you're not in your body, the tendency would be to rationalize that fear and avoid it rather than feeling it. So when you're walking the Camino, the Camino itself forces you at first to move into the body, sort of leave your mind and move more into your body. And then as you make your way into the body, you begin to then to feel these emotions, which little by little, as you start sort of letting your mind do its thing, which is to think, because you're walking, and the act of walking, by the way, one of the things that happens when we walk is it increases the connection between the right and the left hemispheres of our brain. So what begins to happen is the very monotonous activity of walking in alternating legs and arms creates an increased connection between the right and the left hemisphere of the brain. But it also creates a certain mantra in movement, if you may. Where we have an instrument of the thought, which is what a mantra is. The walking becomes an instrument of the thought and the body to keep the body and the mind busy while other deeper processes begin to unfold naturally. So what begins to happen is as you walk, you begin to have access then to memories from your childhood. You begin to think about relationships in your life that have come to an end. And along the journey, I found myself, for no reason sometimes, just crying and purging and just releasing and letting go of old emotions that would begin to then surface as you experience a lot of this discomfort in the body that was very, very common. And I particularly set the intention before I walked the Camino, which is, I discover, is something not a lot of people do. Some people just walk it because it's in their bucket list or they feel a call to do it. But my particular intention was to, as I said earlier, to let go of the part of me that I feel it's important for me to fully and completely surrender in this stage of my life in preparation for this new stage of my life. And then at the same time to receive some wisdom and to receive some guidance with regards to my next steps. And so as I was purging and I was doing a lot of forgiveness work, which basically sort of happens in on its own once you set the intention. Okay, that's the power of setting up an intention. You know, you begin to then to think of all events that happen in your life, and they start popping up very naturally. And as you give yourself permission to feel these all emotions and to surrender these emotions as they show up, the forgiveness is happening there and then. It is being surrendered. It's just being surrendered. Surrender to life, surrender to the heart of God. Something a lot of people don't know is that, you know, in the older days when people did pilgrimages like this, especially those people that were Christian, what they would do is they would practice the Kyrie, or they would pray the Kyrie, or also known as the prayer of the heart, which in Latin in Latin, it's Kyrie eleison, Christi eleison. It's either Latin or Greek. I'm not sure right now. I think it's actually Greek. Kyrie eleison, Christi eleison. Lord, have mercy on me. Christ, have mercy on me. Lord, have mercy on me. Christ, have mercy on me. And so the idea is that mercy is God's forgiveness, God's grace. It's the rest. What do you call it? The openness to receive a higher level of love and compassion that will allow you to then to surrender that which you have been carrying for a very long time and feeling guilty about, or shame or anger about, or whatever it is, to surrender that into the unconditionally loving heart of God. You're in essence saying, Lord, fill me with your grace so that I can feel so much love for myself, so that I can have compassion for myself and forgive myself for what I did, or forgive others for what they did to me. And as you know, compassion is ultimately a quality of the heart. It is through our hearts that we welcome this greater capacity to feel this love. And so as I was praying, Kyrie eleison, Christi eleison, Lord have mercy on me, Christ have mercy on me, what begins to happen then is the action of this grace begins to move through your body. And then you begin to literally detoxify, purge all these emotions. And as I was saying, I find myself numerous times during my Camino just having cathartic moments of just unexplainable, just crying and purging for no reason. Or sometimes I'll get a memory. You know, it's really important to be aware of that. Oftentimes, especially when it comes to our early childhood woundings, many of us did not have the capacity to reason. So a lot of these emotions are stored in the body. And it is in moments like this, when you're exercising your body, when you're moving your body, when you're experiencing the discomfort of the body, that they start to move through your body. So to the conscious mind, they may not make a lot of sense, but it is your willingness to continue to not judge it and to surrender to God that allows you to surrender them and let them go. You know, the process of surrendering, in case you're somebody that's really interested in learning how to surrender, these aspects of yourself is you have to be willing to feel it. You have to be willing to feel it so that you can release it. You cannot really surrender something unless you first accept it. You have to accept it, love it, before you can transcend it. Okay, so any kind of healing where you just kind of sit there on a table and somebody says to you, "Okay, you're healed, you can go up, you can go home, you're fine." In my experience, is not really sustainable, because the energetic component that is actually holding that as a magnetic glue within you hasn't been really loved. That is the essence of what healing is, which is the return to wholeness. You're allowing that feeling which was denied very early in your childhood, because you were either told it's not good to be angry, it's not okay to feel shame, it's not okay to feel guilt, whatever that may be. You're allowing yourself to finally feel it without any judgments about it. And then as you do that, it is surrendered. And so that's one of the things that if you ever get to do the Camino or any pilgrimage that undergoes several weeks or many, many days, you will then go through this period of just purging your emotional body and your mental body. They have a tendency, the thoughts and the emotions and the beliefs that begin to show up. And what begins to happen is, after you surrender and let go and let go and let go and let go, what begins to happen is you begin to feel lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And I remember even hitting some walls when it came to this. So when I began my Camino, as I said, I started in Astorga and walked 272 kilometers. My very first day, because I started in the afternoon, I only walked about 11 kilometers, something like that. So the Camino is set up so that you walk it on stages, and normally stages are periods of about 22 kilometers that people do, and then you're literally walking it with a whole bunch of people. And so when I was walking the Camino, and I decided I was out of the stages in which most people were walking at, and so I decided I wanted to catch up. And so I did a day where I had like 35 kilometers, which was very, very hard on my body. But nonetheless, what I wanted to share about this is that day, there was a moment where I was so sore. I was so tired. I really felt like I just couldn't go on anymore. I had blisters that I could not take my socks off, because if I took my socks off, I would literally rip the blisters out, and I did not want to do that. But I remember something within me just kept telling me, "We'll just keep walking. Surrender all this pain, just like you've been surrendering all the emotional pain to the infinite loving heart of God, and then just allow this day to be an expression of what it's like to also hit this wall." Have you ever been, for example, in your life, whether if it's in a relationship or emotionally, or maybe some task that you're doing, or maybe you're pushing yourself to the next level of success, whatever that may be for you, and you hit a wall? Well, that's exactly what happened to me on that day. I really hit a wall. And so I decided to just practice exactly that. I came into my heart, started breathing into my heart, and then I just kept walking. And within a period of about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, suddenly all the pain was gone. All the emotion, the anger, the sadness, all the purging that I was undergoing dissipated. And suddenly there was a state of bliss that overtook my entire body, a sense of ease. And before I knew it, because I'm talking about me, before I knew it, I felt like I was like something else was walking for me. It was literally the feeling that somebody else was doing the walking, and it wasn't me. I felt like I was just a passenger in my body. I felt like I was just the observer. I literally felt like I was on top of a camel, and the camel was just doing his thing. But the camel obviously was my body. Have you ever experienced anything like that, where it's like a larger force completely takes over you and begins to carry you? Well, that became a very common experience after that day. whereby surrendering the pain, the suffering, all my positionalities, my need to be right about something that would show up, something bigger than me began to carry me. And it was effortless. You know, the interesting thing is that if for whatever reason I stopped, right, which normally you stop every couple of hours to go to the toilet or to get something to eat or whatever, and then you have to start all over again. Oh my God, to get back into that state of flow, it would take a very long time. So after that, I realized, okay, I'm not stopping for anybody or for anything. I'm just going to allow this energy to carry me through. But it became a very, very important way of being for me, because he helped me understand what happens when I surrender it all to life, to God, to my higher self, whatever you want to call it, to love. That's what a lot of the saints and a lot of the martyrs, a lot of our mystical traditions refer to: absolute submission to God. It's not that you're surrendering to some being who's going to judge you, who's going to tell you what's right and wrong from you, or to some kind of a God made in the image and likeness of God that's going to become your authority. But it's surrendering to something bigger than you. When I work with clients, I always help people find that higher vision for themselves, for their lives. And when I talk about surrendering to this vision, this is exactly what I mean. Like letting go of all the thoughts, ideas, judgments you have about how this is going to happen, and then just beginning to walk the journey. You know, a little bit of like that Thomas Merton quote that talks a little bit about, Lord, I don't know where I'm going, but as long as you're guiding me, I'll continue to take this step. So it's a little bit like that. It's like, Lord, I have no idea who's powering this body. It certainly is not me. The body is walking in and of its own. But that intelligence that is doing the walking for me, that is taking me, that got me here this far, will get me through to the other side. So I want you to think that this is not something that becomes available to you only when you walk the Camino or go through an experience like the one I chose to undertake, but that the capacity to do this is always available to you anytime that you are willing to surrender your position, your need to be right, your need of having things done your way, to surrender any feelings that you may be having about a particular situation, person, or thing, and open up to a higher possibility, to a new way of seeing. And then the moment you do that, unseen forces begin to guide you. So that was the experience that I had. Now, shortly after I did that, something really amazing happened within the first 2 days after I did that. The entire Camino became something completely different. Whereas the first 8-9 days, I was pretty much walking on my own, carrying my backpack and, purging and crying and releasing and letting go. Suddenly, it became very connected and social. And I started meeting these amazing people with whom I would just like walk, and, we'd be leaving one of the refugios, one of the albergues, and then we'll be like joining exactly at the right perfect time on the path, and we'll have these deep conversations about life, about love. Sometimes I would just hold space for someone, or sometimes others would hold space for me. And then we'd be staying at the same albergues, and then having breakfast together, having beers together, singing together. I mean, it became completely the opposite. And for me, it became a realization of what happens when I begin to release and let go of what's no longer serving me. And then I begin to open up to a new way of being in the world. And so that's what it was. The second part of the Camino became a celebration. I mean, to the point that by the time we arrived in Santiago de Compostela, literally we had a major party in the plaza that night with mariachis and like the whole shebang. I posted some pictures of that on if you subscribe to my newsletter, I posted some pictures of that last night of celebration. Literally, I felt like I was back in college celebrating with all my college buddies, except my college buddies were people from all different countries and personalities and walks of life. And it was amazing. It was amazing. It was that sense of we've all made it. We'll walk together, everybody at their own pace, but we've been here sharing our pain. We've been leaving aspects of ourselves behind, and we have been renewed in some kind of a way by something much bigger than us. After we arrived in Santiago, I continued on to Finisterre, which it's a town in Galicia that is the farther most western part of the European continent. Finisterre in Galician means the end of the earth, because it was believed that that was the end of the earth. So when people walk this long pilgrimage, the intention was to release and let go of their old selves, to be reborn. And obviously, if you were walking it, asking for the mercy of Jesus and the Christ, so what would happen was you would be renewed, reborn at the end of your pilgrimage. You would be literally offering all of that which was old, which didn't serve you anymore. You would offer it along the path, and then come home to the relics of Santiago, where you would receive your blessing, and then continue down to Finisterre, which is another 2.5, 3 days walk. And there you would bathe in the ocean, and you would burn your own clothing that you would walk the Camino with. I did not do that, but I did burn my underwear that I walked the Camino with. As a symbolism of the piece of garment that I had worn, to just let it go, burn, and your clothing represents in many ways the personality. Think of it as your ego. The word persona, personality, from the Greek means mask. So you're burning this mask of yours. You're ready to see yourself a little bit closer to the way God sees you. And so taking that dip in the ocean is the most refreshing thing after such a long, arduous pilgrimage. After all the sweat, the tears, the hopes, the new insights. And there I stayed for a couple of days, met some wonderful people with whom I had the opportunity to share also and to begin to unpack some of the insights and the learnings. And something that emerged out of that pilgrimage during the time that I was walking was just a lot more clarity about my next steps. For example, my entire itinerary here in Europe pretty much changed while I was walking the Camino. But it had to do because of inspiration that I received along the way. Just to give you an example, I am right now, as I said earlier, I am in Madeira. In the city of Funchal. In case you're not familiar with Portugal, this is the homeland of Ronaldo, Cristiano Ronaldo. In fact, they even have a museum. I can't believe there's like the National Museum of Ronaldo, the house that he grew up in. I don't think I'll be going to that. I don't have anything against him, but I'd much rather spend my time visiting some of the cathedrals and churches. And I told my Airbnb guy with whom I'm staying at his house, I told him, I want to go to all the places where the divine lives in high levels of intensity. So I want to go to all the cathedrals, and I also want to go to those places in nature that are highly charged, that are filled with beauty and wonder. And so that's what I'm going to be doing for the next 7 days while I hang out here in Madeira. The reason I felt called or compelled to come here was because this is the land of my ancestors. This is where my lineage comes from. And I turned 50 this year. And I remember when I turned 50, I had this deep desire to come to the land of my forefathers. And I didn't think it would really happen so quickly, but it ended up happening in the Strip. So I changed the itinerary so I could come here. And once I came here, I began to see, and this also happened during the Camino de Santiago, the insight began to come to me in the form of dreams and just a deeper sense of inner knowing that I needed to honor my ancestors. I come from a lineage of of Portuguese sailors that left Madeira during the 1850s and went down to Georgetown, Guyana, British Guyana, which is where my father was born. And many of them never went back. So I have a lot of family here. Something that I learned along the way, and this came through intuitive guidance and then also a little bit of research, was that some of my ancestors were slave traders, were some of the first Europeans who went down to Western Africa and literally abducted African people and brought them, enslaved them to work the sugar plantations here in the Azores Islands. And so as I began to connect with that, I felt a tremendous amount of grief and sadness, and I received the guidance to come here not only to honor them for what they were able to create, because otherwise without them, I would not be who I am. And they were extremely laborious people, very hardworking, fishermen, sailors, builders of nations. And, but then also I felt compelled or inspired to also do forgiveness work around all those lives that were taken from their homes. Many of them worked to death, separated from their families. And so part of my trip here, or my stay in this island, is also about doing forgiveness work and asking for forgiveness on behalf of my ancestors, to all those African souls that were separated and who were hurt, who experienced pain as a result of slavery. I'm noticing some sadness beginning to move through me as I'm sharing this, so you can feel already how what this means to me. So over the next few days, I'm going to go visit the Tombstone in the Santa Clara Convent, which is where the first Gonsalves, the patriarch, if you may, of the family, who happens to be also the guy who discovered the island of Madeira and claimed it for the Portuguese, Prince Henry the Navigante, the sailor. He's the one that literally set out the whole movement to, on behalf of Portugal, colonize many different islands, not just here in the north in Europe, but then also down in South America, including obviously Brazil. And so I'm going to honor him. I'm going to go to his tombstone and honor my ancestors. I really do feel that, it's whoever you are, whatever you are in the world, that you take a moment to acknowledge the contribution of those that came before you, to honor them, to give them their place in their lineage. Even though you may not be in agreement with what they did or how they behave, what they may have done, just with the awareness and with a sense of compassion that it's really not fair to judge them from our current reality, from our current cultural perspective, for they live in completely different times. They lived in completely different times in which we live. And so it's very hard to actually judge them from our own perspective. One of the insights, for example, that I had while I was walking the Camino with regards to slavery was that, yes, from the perspective of separating people and enslaving them and depriving them of their freedom, it's definitely not the loving thing to do. But from a different perspective, at a time and period or a period in the history of our world where human life had basically no value, suddenly, for the very first time, they were putting a monetary value on human life. So I'm not condoning it, but I'm saying that it was part of the evolution towards beginning to value ourselves. It may have not been the step that ultimately led to the abolition of slavery, but it ultimately was a step in beginning to value human life, even though it may have been just for pure commercial reasons. But at least it was a step in beginning to value our fellow human beings, rather than just thinking of people as just objects, which is how, for a great period of our history, has been, and to a certain degree, still happening. So I'm here now in Madeira for the rest of the week, and it's a time of integration It's a time of bringing together all these insights and learnings from the past few weeks. Something that I haven't shared with you is that immediately finishing the Camino, after I completed the Camino, I came to Paris to facilitate a training and then also to attend a conference with Greg Braden, who is one of my favorite teachers in the field of heart intelligence. And I got to be in Paris for the weekend and attend a really wonderful training. And talking about the Camino and what it means to live from the heart, something really cool that happened while I was attending his conference was that I arrived the night before from Spain. I flew into Paris. And my only suitcase that I have, because I'm traveling with my backpack and my guitar. That's pretty much everything I need. And my guitar did not make it for some reason. You know, when your bags are late and they don't make it into the same flight and kind of get angry about it. Well, that's exactly what happened. I wasn't too thrilled that I arrived in Paris without my baby, my guitar. And so I had it sent to where the conference was. And so it arrived the next day on Saturday, first day of the conference. And I had started meeting some of the organizers and, networking and connecting with wonderful people. And so when they brought in the guitar, people asked me, "Oh, do you play the guitar?" And I said, "Yes, of course. Yeah. I mean, I'm a transformational coach. I do a lot of circle work and seminars where I'm introducing and working more and more and more with music, because I find is one of the quickest ways to bypass the thinking mind and move people into the heart." So they asked me, the producer asked me, "Well, would you like to play some music during one of the breaks? And maybe, Greg Braden will let you play in front of the audience." So I was like, well, I've never played in front of an audience of 700 people, because that's how many people were at the conference. And that's exactly what happened. I ended up performing a few songs for the audience, and obviously getting to meet Greg Braden and have a quick little chat with him. These conferences are very hard to actually meet with the main speaker, because he's signing books and signing autographs and having his picture taken with everybody. But nonetheless, I got to perform a song that I wrote called Chanta Ishta, which means the single eye of the heart in Cherokee. And so I was really super excited that I got to do that. It was one of the highlights. And funny thing, while I was there, I just felt so on target in terms of the work that I'm doing. Because I literally saw things from the stage, from the perspective of somebody that it's bringing this message out to the masses, to a lot of people. And I felt right at home. I really felt like the whole Camino had prepared me all, for that space, for that moment. Because the truth is, there was not an ounce of fear in my heart and my bones at that moment. I mean, if you were to tell me right now, Gabs, you're going to play in front of 700 people, I would probably freak out and go like, ah, But at that moment, because of the space that I was in, and after walking the Camino, it just felt like the most natural thing. And there I was performing. And then people just clapped, and some people were like, "Oh my God, can I have your YouTube? Where do you have CDs?" I don't have CDs yet. So that is the next stage of my work. Over the past couple of years, I've been developing my capacity to become a channel or an instrument for music all around the heart, and inspired or designed to help people connect with their spiritual heart and facilitate emotional healing. So that's something that's going to be coming up over the next few weeks. And so you'll get a chance to see, along with this podcast, you're probably going to start seeing some music videos where I'm going to be sharing some of these wonderful songs that have been coming through me and through my music partner, Michael. You're gonna really enjoy it, and I'm so looking forward to the time when we can record these videos. So my goodness, I can't believe it's already we're getting close to the hour. I'm picking up a question here from Rebecca. Do you think that you will be in the United States anytime soon? Not soon, Rebecca, but I am planning to be in the US June and July of next year. I'll be facilitating the new series of seminars This Camino and this transition I've been talking about has led to the redesign of how I approach my work and how I deliver my work. So the Path of the Heart seminar will be the introduction to this work in heart intelligence and wholehearted living, with a very strong emphasis on the application and the embodiment, and it will be followed by a 5-day seminar called the Sacred Journey of the Heart, which is it's a deeper dive into emotional healing and healing those core wounds from our childhood. And then learning the tools and the practices so that you can do this individually, relationally, with others, with a partner, and then also spiritually. Okay, that's where the music plays an increasingly more and more important role. So my plan is to be in the U.S. back in July of next year, and I'll be there for a whole 3 months. I intend to facilitate not only the seminars, but then also meet with the coaches that I'm training right now. We will be wrapping up our 9-month teacher training program, coach training program, and then I'll be doing some I'll be doing some trainings while I'm there. So stay tuned through the newsletter. I'll be announcing specific dates. The training center will probably most likely be located somewhere in St. Louis, Missouri, somewhere around that area. Not 100% confirmed yet, but just to kind of give you a heads up, it will be somewhere around that area. And the 2 trainings will be run back to back, which means we will do one that weekend, and it will be immediately followed by the level 2. So you can choose to just do level 1 and then go home, or if you want to go through the whole 2 seminar experience, you can stay a little bit longer and then participate in both of them. Yeah, I hope that answers your question. The Camino is in essence it's a journey of surrendering. This journey is learning how to really live your life from the greater loving intelligence that guides your life, that powers your life. It's really a way of letting go of your need to control your life, control others, and beginning to live your life more from a state of surrendering, which is ultimately what it means to me to follow the path of your heart. And oftentimes when I think of the path of the heart versus the path of the mind, the path of the mind is oftentimes a path of linearity. Your mind, your conscious mind, your world of ideas, thoughts, beliefs normally is very linear. You do this and then this happens. And so it's very causal. It's almost like very sequential. But when you start living more from the intelligence, the wisdom, and the power of your heart, oftentimes it requires letting go of everything that you believed about a particular subject or topic and beginning to access a different level or a way of being where you are being guided by an internal compass. What I mean by that is that you don't know exactly where you're going, where you're going to end up, but you know what is the right thing right now to do at this moment. So if you are right now in your life in a place where you don't know where your life is going, where there's a lot of things happening, where you're being stripped of relationships, a particular career, or maybe your body temple is breaking down in some way, maybe your money situation has really changed and you find yourself impaired in some way, not able to do the things that you thought you wanted to do. Well, this is the perfect time. Think of it as the universe is calling to begin to live from a different positionality, from the path of your heart, the inner knowing awareness that regardless of what or how things look on the outside in your life, that there is a greater wisdom in which you are now living, participating, and having your being. That right here, right now, there are no mistakes happening in your life. That even though you may not see the full, or like the path ahead, at least knowing that today you are okay, and that at least there's 2-3 things that you can do, that is enough That is enough. That you can surrender your fears, your anxiety, even your need to know how things are going to unfold. You can surrender all of that and almost walk your life with an attitude where you are literally saying, Lord, I have no idea what's happening in my life. My mind cannot wrap itself as to why this happened or how am I even going to get out of the situation that I think I am. But I have complete trust and faith that if I just surrender it all to you, surrender my idea of how things should be, how things should work out, if I can just do that and allow myself to just rest in this moment, right there, in the surrendering and letting it all go into your loving heart in this moment, I will just give him just the next step to take. It may just be just simply go out and make this meal, or go out and call this friend, or go out for a walk of fresh air, or go and whatever, start reading this book. But it is by taking that next step without the need to know, out of which little by little a path, direction begins to set its way in. And you're willing to just take the next step and the next step and the next step, even though there may be pain involved, is what will allow you to little by little begin to get the momentum that will begin to then send your life in the direction, not of what you thought you wanted, but on what was actually waiting for you, the relationship you're waiting for, the career you're waiting for, whatever that may be for you. That is the possibility that I'm holding for both you and me. After my time here in Madeira, I'm going to continue on to the island of San Miguel, San Michael, and then Lisboa, and where I'm planning also to go to visit the Virgin of Fatima, and then to Timor, which is one of the last Templar cities where the Templars lived and got to build some really wonderful cathedrals. Before I make my way back into Granada, where I plan to be then for the whole month of November. And this is where I'm feeling called and guided to look for a home as part of the next stage of my work, and being in a central place that will allow me to travel much more easily and conveniently to other parts of the world, met with people like you, and to teach seminars. So see, I'm walking this path, not knowing exactly how or in what way it's going to manifest, but I'm just simply taking the next step. As I walk the path, more and more begins to be revealed to you. I want you to think of this idea or this notion of following your heart no different than when you have, one of those GPS devices on your phone. Notice that oftentimes, that happened to me a lot in Paris. I wasn't sure if I was walking the right way, because the satellite would not let me know which way I was moving, which not give me that kind of feedback until I walked. But if I was just standing, waiting for the thing to tell me which way to walk, it would just not happen. So very much the same thing happens with our walk and the path that we walk in. It requires that you begin to take some kind of an action, move in one direction or another, and you will immediately begin to receive the feedback of the intuitive guidance of your heart, letting you know. Certainly, because there will be a sense of a flow, and you'll feel good. And if it's not the right direction, you'll know right away, because it will feel bad. You might even feel it inside, or you will just simply receive feedback from your external reality, letting you know that you're moving in not really the most loving direction. This is in many ways what it means to move and live from your heart, to follow the path of your own heart. Wow. How am I going to drink from this thing if the lid is on it? Okay, so if you're just watching the replay, what I try to do is I try to drink out of my bottle of water while the cap was still on. All right, so we are coming to the end, or we have come to the end of our time together. So I want to thank you for hanging out with me for the past hour and lending me your ear and lending me your heart. And I love it if you, as you leave here today, as you as we get to the end of our time together, you take a few moments today to think about your own path. And then just ask yourself the following question. What is it that I need to surrender and let go of? And I know if I did that, new opportunities and new possibilities will begin to show up in my life. What is it that I need to start releasing and letting go of? That I know in my heart it's important for me to do so that I can take the next step in my life, whatever that may be for you. And then just go for a walk. The truth is, you don't have to do a pilgrimage like the one I did to be able to do this cleansing. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is just have the intention and the willingness to be able to ask yourself these very important questions, to face yourself in the proverbial mirror of your own life and ask yourself these very simple questions. What is the universe asking me to release and let go of? What is it that is now outdated? What way of being? What are beliefs? What are the beliefs that I need to start letting go of? What are the aspects of myself that I need to let go of? And then listen as if your life depended on it, because it does. The next stage of your evolution, the next stage of your life depends on the answers that you will receive through and by means of your heart. So as we wrap up our time together, my prayer for you is that the universe will continue to guide you through the love, wisdom, and power of your heart, out of which all the right decisions and all the right things are now happening for you and for your life, for the highest outcome, and for the greater expression of who you really are in the eyes of God, so that you may welcome greater prosperity, abundance, love, joy, and begin to experience yourself from a completely new perspective, knowing that you are always love guided and protected by the wisdom of God through and by means of your heart. Let us just hold that for ourselves and for each other and for those that we love, and declare it so in the name of love itself, of the Christ awareness that lives inside of us, and in the name of God. And so it is. All right. We have come to the end of our time together. So I hope you received great value from what I share here today. And again, if you're interested in learning more about my upcoming seminars around the world, or how to work with me one-on-one, feel free to visit my website, heartintelligencecoach.com, where you can learn more about the work that I'm doing. Again, thank you very much for lending me your heart, your ears, and until the next time we meet, I send you all of my love. Bye-bye for now.